Hello everyone, the year is 2021. I'm, I'm making this video basically to document my experience on running a VPS service, through a DigitalOcean Droplet and running Google Chrome on it, and trying to run it 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without stopping, even if I'm turning off my computer, turning it on, rebooting, just having that droplet, that Google Chrome on that on the private server run persistently, constantly, without depending on my computer, my computer's activity. Sorry. So, as I mentioned, just documenting my experience. This is none of this. I don't want anybody to follow it as advice. And just disclaimer, don't want to compromise myself, because some of these stuff can be very sensitive in terms of privacy, and if you don't do it right, it may pose some security issues. So I don't want to get into all that. And so, as I mentioned, I reiterate, this is just me documenting my experience. So first thing that I already had a DigitalOcean account, but let's say you would want to, I guess, repeat what I'm doing. You may have to sign up for it. Now, I'll be placing all the relevant links for my experience in below my video description. And let's say you want to get a $100 credit. That's just money given to you. I mean, it's not money given to you. It's a credit given to you by DigitalOcean so that it can be used in DigitalOcean services. Then you can sign up through my referral link, which I'll also be placing below the video description. It's also a nice way to support my video because I get 25%. I get $25 credit as well. So yeah. Anyways, if so signing up, it's very boilerplate process. If you agree with their policy, it can be very easy to do so. And I believe that you don't get charged for signing up. And this is not, even if you are signed up and you already are have a year of signed up to the service, I believe that there's no costs incurred on that in itself. However, if you want to purchase some services, as I will be showing, of course, you'll be billed for those services, such as droplets. So we'll start with that. So the first step would be obviously signing up. Second step would be creating a droplet. Now, after you've signed up, you'll probably be sent to this type of page or interface. And what I did for this, for my experience, was I created a droplet. So I clicked on create droplet here, and then just go choose an image. This is this one I chose. Ubuntu 20.04 is the most updated right now. Then plan, you can obviously choose any you want. Some of them are more specialized, but for the purposes, I thought, running Google Chrome 24/7 with an Ubuntu operating system, that usually takes a little bit less than 2 gigabytes of RAM. So I'll just go with that. At least from what I read right on forums, and even trying to make calculations on my computer, I thought, okay, yeah, so 2 gigabytes of RAM, maybe I should go with the $10 a month. So anyways, data center region, I would just pick the one which is closest to home, or to where you live. Just for privacy concerns, I'm not going to say which one I chose, but and as I mentioned, just chose one which is closer to you. For authentication, now I was like, yeah, I know for sure these passwords are not such a great idea for authentication, especially when it comes to servers. So I went with the SSH key. Now the SSH key process is a little bit more intricate than the password. I believe if you select password, you just get emailed the password by email from DigitalOcean. SSH key is a little bit more complex, but nonetheless, it's not impossible. So I'm going to go through the SSH key process, obviously. So if you get decide to do that, or if you wanted to model, what I'm doing, whatever. The process is kind of like just it takes you to this page. Then after it takes you to this page, you'll see that there's a lot of information that it's like, oh, a little scary, right? But I was like, wait, I'll just follow the instructions on the right. The SSH keys, right? So create a new pair, copy the command. Of course, you have to copy it in your terminal, in your local computer. And so I'm using a Ubuntu operating system. So, it's very easy to do so. If you're running something else, I believe that if you're running Windows or Mac, it may be a little different. So I encourage you to do some reading on how that may work. I'm not very experienced with that anymore. I believe maybe can use a bash service or something like that, like git bash or anyways, I digress. So just experience, right? So my experience. So just like, I thought, okay, easy, just like follow the directions on the right. Then it told me some stuff about how to save, how to generate this key. And also here, right, you'll be asked to create and confirm passphrase for the key. And so obviously went with both, went with that, and just create a password for it. Generated 2 files. I pasted the public key, as they say, in here in this rectangular area. Then I gave a personal name here for the SSH key and added the public key with this command. Copied this command on the terminal, and then boom, that's done. Great. So after that was done, they tell me how many droplets. And once again, because just like as the video states, just running a process with a single DigitalOcean droplet. So I picked 1. You can select assign a droplet to a project if you have a project. It's good for tracking purposes. And you don't necessarily have to assign it to any project right now. You can always, the droplet can always be reassigned or assigned to a different project after it's created. So I was like, no worries. Just keep going. Enable backups. It's recommended, but it's up to you. I'm not gonna mention what I chose. So, anyways, after you're done, create droplet. And that's basically it, how to create a droplet, right? It will take you back to this page. And for that, you'll have a nice IP address now, because a droplet is basically just some server space that you get in an ocean of servers nests. DigitalOcean. Okay. Anyways, so obviously the name that was defaulted, or like a default name for your droplet as well, that was either chosen by DigitalOcean or changed by you, and then created data creation. So you're gonna keep your IP address in handy. I believe there's a very nice function the DigitalOcean offers. If you're hovering over your IP address, there's some blue letters that appear and saying copy, and you can copy that and just keep your IP handy for the next step. Now, the next step which I followed was installing and configure VMC. This is of course after you finished installing the droplet. What you will need, because the droplet is, as I mentioned, is just a server or server space. So the VNC is basically what is needed for this virtual private server to be run as a GUI. Okay, so that's basically what it's saying here. Now, you'll set up a server with type VNC, and then you're gonna connect it securely. This is important because it's an encryption technology. Just makes everything more secure, just SSH tunneling. And so this is basically what it's gonna be, what this tutorial is trying to teach you and trying to do for you to do. So after that, you can choose use a VNC client program, on your computer to control that server GUI or graphical user interface. Now, this is just some requirements that you'll need here. So I got the Ubuntu 20.04 server, as I explained also on the previous step, right? I don't know if you remember. Yeah. So it's one of the requirements or prerequisites, and so that server is, the server of your droplet, obviously. I mean, sorry, this operating system is the operating system of your droplet, and this, don't worry about it. So if just follow. If you haven't set it up or you don't know what it is, just right click and open linking new tab and just follow the setup guide and just follow the instructions here. So I'll also be placing that link below, and instructions are very easy to follow, right? So basically that IP address which is in your main dashboard, right? That's the IP address of your droplet, right? You can copy it, and you basically have to type this command on your terminal, shroot at your IP, right? So everything is very self-explanatory, I feel. They're gonna tell you how to add a user name. You can be creative here and just choose whatever name you want, and just remember it because it will be used. This is basically the non-root administrative access that you will be creating, right? So just choose something that you can remember for the steps on the main guide here, which is the install and configure VNC, right? So I'm just gonna tell you, just basically just copy in, there's like some nice utility here, just copy in these command lines on your terminal, and yeah, so, and after you're done with that, instructions are very, very, very easy to follow. There was nothing here, I believe. I didn't have problems with any of these instructions, so if you follow them, you should be fine. Of course, just replace Sammy with the name you created for this non-root access point, right? So just remember, just replace Sammy and obviously your server IP by the IP address from your DigitalOcean dashboard from the droplet you just created. Right, so that should be very easy to follow. So I'm not gonna go too much detail into that. So this, don't worry about it right now. If you have Linux, right, Remmina is a great service. Well, I have Linux, so I am using Remmina as a VNC client. And the VNC client is basically it's like the bridge between your local computer, which is my computer, with the DigitalOcean Droplet. So I believe if it's Mac, it's the screen sharing, and I think screen sharing is built in by Mac OS, right? So and Windows, I believe PUTTY, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm not so sure about Windows, so please do your own research on that. Anyways, I digress. So basically, don't worry too much about this. This, like, what you can do is the latest step. So step one, what you're gonna need to do, right, is if you remember the previous. This other setup guide, which was I'm also placing on the video description, initial server setup with Ubuntu 20.04, which is like the first, that link, right, which I already explained. So they actually tell you that after you're done with this, what were they say? Yeah, that you will be can install any of the software you need on your server now. So everything that you see here, most of these things, right, are not being installed in your local computer. Okay, you do not go just like copy paste this like here. No, you have to do SSH root, the root access, and I believe it's not. Wait, just a second, please. Yeah. So as I mentioned, you have to do SSH access, not root. Sorry, you have to get into your secure shell and then run those commands. Because if you install them, all of them in your local terminal computer, then you're not installing anything on your server droplet. You need to access it, right? So after you've accessed it with the SSH process, which is shown, I believe, here. What I've done is, just like update these packages and install this on my droplet. Once again, I reiterate, on my droplet and not on my local computer. So I had to do the SSH process, the SSH command first. Okay, so I installed all these inside my droplet. Sorry, and just like really mentioning it over and over again, just so that people don't get confused. You don't want to install this, for instance, in your local computer, because that will be basically installing another operating system on top of your operating system, right? So you want to do all that in your secure shell, right? Got it? So after you're done with that, you're gonna install the type BNC server. So this is a lot of copy paste, and your SSH secure shell with your terminal. Then you're gonna run the BNC command. This is also very simple. It's gonna tell you to set up a BNC access password. Now remember that password, please, because you will need it to run the BNC client. All right. So after you're done with that password, so please read also that your password's too long, it's just gonna get truncated. And now after you're done with that, with creating a password and remembering, of course, for later, it's gonna ask you, would you like to enter view only password? I placed no. I typed N for no, and then it's gonna give you that information does not exist. It looks scary, but it's not. It's just like this is basically dependent on the fact that you didn't type a view only password, I think. After this, you'll get like a kind of like an output window that looks like that, right? And then this is just like a note. If you don't have to do this, if you remember your password, right? But if you want to change it, you just type that command. Otherwise, do not. Okay. Now, setting up the VNC server. This I initially had some problems with, but I believe now it just became very evident on what was my mistake and why it wasn't running too well. So what you have to do is obviously like just follow the instructions and try to understand what everything here is doing. So I'm not gonna go into much detail about it because all the reading material is here for you to understand also. So I'm just gonna go over some of the more confusing stuff that was for me that I couldn't like really understand too well. So it's basically the way that I interpreted it was, okay, if I want to make changes to VNCs to this server, I have to kill the process first, because otherwise it's just gonna continue writing what its current commands are. So I went with that option. I copied it, I believe, on my let's see, give me a second. This computer too much. Yeah, so sorry. So I think that it's also through the SSH, through the S secure shell as well, that you do the kill instance, and then basically all of this stuff you will need to modify a script, which is inside that as well, inside the secure shell. So this just gonna have to like copy the command. And Nano, this is just an editing software, kind of like a text. What do you call it? Text file. I don't even know what it's called. A notepad file. Yeah. So Nano, it's a little bit more primitive, I believe, than that though. So you basically have to write all that in the terminal. So I can show you. So Nano, and like you can type here, and of course if you want to exit, you have to press Control X. It will tell you save. Do you want to save this file or no? I'm not gonna save it, so I'm just gonna click on no. Press N, letter N, and it takes you back, right? So that's what Nano is. So you're just gonna type that, then Control X after you're done, save the file. Of course, you're gonna type. You're gonna do this command, so this way it saves it in that directory, right? So after Nano, all this line, this exit, press yes, and that's how I saved it. And the first line is a shebang. Right, that sounds a little funny. All right, so yeah, so you're gonna read a little bit of what this actually does, and this is basically a script which runs all the lines instead of you typing line by line on your terminal. And this is only when the VNC is like a configuration file for the startup of that virtual network computing service with the VNC. After you're done with that, just like copy pasting and saving it, then you're gonna copy paste this as well. This makes it into an executable file, kind of like Windows had made .exe files, I believe. And then also you're gonna have to copy paste that also into your terminal secure shell, and then you're gonna restart the VNC server. So in this way, because you killed it before, now you need to restart it. Right, so you're gonna click, you're gonna copy paste this, and now it's gonna give you this output. And yeah, that's basically it for that step. Now keep in mind that if you do VNC server kill, like after you do this, it will reboot, it will restart your whole VPS droplet. It will restart the VPS. So let's say you were running some process in your VPS, it will kill it, it will reboot it. So let's say you're running like a stopwatch, it will just turn off the system, and your stopwatch, your website will not be there. Your stopwatch website, it will not be running the stopwatch anymore, obviously, because it got rebooted. Okay, so so that's it for step number 2. Now step number 3, did I have any problems? Maybe I did, but so I'm just gonna try to help you out with this, so you don't have as many, I guess. Sorry, I must like reword what I said. This is, as I mentioned, not really advice. This is just me documenting my experience. So, so creating an SSH connection. So what I did here is, I believe I just, started also just copying this. And now for this, this command that you give it, right? So you have 4 customizable areas here. 4 areas that you can change, the penultimate and the ultimate one, the SAMI and your server IP, of course you have to replace that with your non-root username and with the IP of your droplet in that way, right? Now you're gonna get some explanations, obviously, for what this and this is. But before I do so, right? So this just a heads up. You don't type it into your secure shell, because as you can see, it is calling on the secure shell, right? So this is actually what is known as the tunnel, I believe. So what helps is so what you're gonna do is that command, you need to type it here every time you need to start you want to start your BPS and look at your BPS. Now, of course, that would be a little bit tedious. So what you can always do is you can just create a file which has, I guess you can just give it a name, like a simple name, right? Like the tunnel, I guess. And it can be a bash file or a shell file, right? And so you just type touch the tunnel, and now you can just access it, your file you just created. It will obviously be blank right now, but what you can do is you can just copy that line into the shell file, and that's what I, at least, so once again, this is just what I did just to make my life simpler. I just typed my my username, my non-root username. So let's say it was not Sammy. Let's say it was I don't know. Let's say I chose Hammy instead of Sammy, and let's say my server IP is just like something 109 3 point something like that, right? So I'm just giving you some random numbers, okay? So just like type something and maybe make it I don't know, something unlikely, right? So whatever your IP address was, you just type it there. And yeah, so of course these, you are more than welcome. I believe that these can be changed also, that they just need to be linked to your VPS client. So make sure that if in case you're changing that, I think that they need to be, obviously you need to, if your local host is this number, you need to access that port when you in your VNC client. So after you're done with that, nonetheless, you just save it and you close, and so you can always execute you know, that you can always start your tunnel by just typing bash the tunnel. Okay, so it's that easy. Now, so I highly would encourage you to read this if you want to go with the installation yourself. However, I'm just like, as I tell you, just documenting my experience here. It is also giving you some directions in terms of like, well, what if you were using PuTTY, right? Which is, I believe it's this more like a Windows type of approach or strategy. So there's some very helpful instructions here on how to do it. Then you'll get your independent operating system, quote unquote, or outside of your computer in a virtual private server or VPS. Right, so that's basically this. Now, I didn't go through with step 4. I just like stopped at step 3. And maybe I'll go over it later, later in time. However, I just went as far as here, and that's it. I did not do step 4. Now I'm just gonna show you the process for basically accessing the droplet, right? So how do I do that? Well, it's very simple, right? So as I mentioned before, and I want to reiterate, you should, unless you want your VPS droplet to be restarted, so in other words, like analogous to our computer to be rebooted, do not kill it. Do not kill the VNC server in your root secure shell. Just keep it on, obviously. And just to make sure that it's on, right? You can, what I did was I copied and pasted this command in my secure shell before starting my VPS. All right, so that's what I did. I also, when I wanted to start Remmina, I believe it's installed. It's a built-in for your Ubuntu operating system. But even if it's not a built-in, it's not hard to install, right? You just need to go search how to install Remmina on Ubuntu or on Linux if you have Linux, and it's a very easy process. So with Remmina, I believe I think it's actually a great service, because what you can do with it, and I'll show you right now, is you can save some access points, and so that way if your computer gets restarted, um, you know, let's say, and even if you close Remmina, when you open it again, it's all saved in your computer, so you can access it very easily and very fast. So how do I create these, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to new connection, and in new connection, the information you need is basically to give it the domain. Now the domain name is gonna be I'll show you. I don't know if you remember the tunnel we created, right? This. So the domain name for this, for my type of operating system, should be localhost followed by the port name, I believe, which is this one. So this is basically that line is, sorry, this line localhost colon 59,000. That should be the domain, I believe. And password is the password that you set up earlier for the VNC. So do you remember the password? So this is the password which I told you to remember, right? So VNC server, you needed to create a password in, I believe, step 1 or 2. So that's the password you need to write here. And of course, because we are I configured a VNC. Protocol had to be changed to Remmina VNC plugin. Okay. So once again, after Remmina VNC plugin was changed, the only thing I needed to add was the server, right? Which, as I mentioned, it's local host, 59,000 colon, sorry. And so it was just server and user password. I did not have to write a repeater or username, just those 2 lines and then save. And that's it, right? So, and after I did that, it gave me this option. So now, if you want to access your VNC right away, what you need to do is very simple. You just need to, after you created your tunnel shell file, you execute it wherever you created it. And so I am just executing mine now, bash tunnel, and then I click on the quick connect. And guess what? It's that fast, right? This is now my VNC. This is my VPS running Ubuntu. Sorry, my VPS running Google Chrome, and it's been running more than a day now. I have turned off rebooted my computer around 6 to 7 times, and I have turned it off, then waited a minute and turned it back on, and this thing has kept running. This stopwatch has kept running since yesterday. So I am excited actually about this. So I will be able to run some processes here. But yeah, so this is basically how it's run. Now, of course, just keep in mind that if you kill the process in your shell, and by that I mean like the step that I showed you before, then this local host is restarted, right? So, but if you don't do the kill -1 or something, then it just keeps going on. It can go on forever. So yeah. So you see, how do I close it, right? So I can close it in 2 ways. I can just close it by closing the tunnel, and then I just closed it, right? So you can see that it's no longer here. And so when I try to access it, guess what? It's not able to connect to the VNC server because the tunnel is closed. So I need to open the tunnel. Okay, so I open the tunnel and it connects. Great, right? So clock is still running. Like I said, I have turned off my computer already like 6 times or 7 times, and it's still the server droplet, Google Chrome on the server, on the VPS droplet, DigitalOcean droplet is still running. So yeah, so this is basically it. As I mentioned before, and I reiterate, if you want to run your Google Chrome droplet, Google Chrome in the VPS forever, do not press this. Do not run this command line on the secure shell. Or I would have, like, I mean, I think that it wouldn't be wise because it can just kill the server. However, once again, like, I just reiterate before I end this video that none of this is advice. I wouldn't want anybody to just take it as such. You have to do your own work and your own research and look into what's safe, because even if I'm saying this, who knows, maybe it's not as secure as I think. So this is me just documenting my experience and following DigitalOcean protocol as well as I can, I guess. So yeah, so if you watched this video and you liked it, I'm happy to, I would be happy to know that. So please give it a like, and if you really like my content, also don't forget to subscribe, and you're welcome to use or do more reading on on this process with the links that I have provided. And so it's the end of this video. Right, until next time, goodbye.